Good afternoon, everybody. It is 4/29 of 2021. Let me get the Candyman here done by Sammy Davis Jr. Get that turned off here. So today I am coming to you in the late afternoon for this podcast. We are going to discuss today the state of address that happened last night with President Joe Biden and members of the House committee. It's kind of a, as I looked at that last night, ladies and gentlemen, there wasn't a lot of people there. And I'll tell you something that really kind of irritated me and pissed me off last night was, did anybody catch the post address before everything was happening and after it happened? It's kind of interesting for the Biden administration and a lot of the House, and I even say, some of the Republican Party candidates really screaming that COVID is a serious issue and we all have to keep everybody on lockdown. Especially some of the blue states that's still on lockdown. And we got to protect the elderly and kids in school and social distance and wear a mask. I tell you, there was a lot of no masks, masks down under the nose or chin diapers, as it's been called in episodes of South Park, which I found amusingly funny. But I mean, these people were kissing on the cheeks and handshaking and fist bumping and just no distancing, no masks. I thought that was amusing, but at the same time, it kind of irked me a little bit, seeing how we have struggling Americans that's out of work, small businesses that's been crushed, people's dreams that's been crushed. But by God, our government just, everything that they tell us to do, they just do that. Absolute opposite. But hey, who am I to complain, right? So we're going to get into it tonight. I'm going to talk about the speech, like I said. So this was Biden's first address to the American people. This was his 100-day benchmark, so to speak, which he set another new record here. I mean, he's the first president to never have an address, after taking office. He waited 100 days out. And I'm going to tell you, the address was, well, I fell asleep. It was so boring that when we did turn the channel back on, my wife said she couldn't watch it. So rather he accomplished by putting half the nation to sleep, or nobody watched. So if that was your intent, Mr. President, congratulations, you succeeded. But getting to the actual address itself, he basically just did a couple of key things. And if you were paying attention to the speech at all, the first one was he basically systematically set forth a radical forward motion of what his administration is going to do in the weeks and months to come. And it is a scary one. The biggest takeaway that I seen from this, besides the, trillions of dollars he wants to pump into it. I've heard 2, 4, 6 trillion now. He talks about he's wanting to do this for the infrastructure bill, which is supposedly supposed to be $2 trillion. He's saying, he told Congress that it's basically a negotiation point that he drafted up with ideas of compromise and that it's going to have to inevitably happen between both parties. It's never going to happen. There's too many things in this infrastructure bill that he tried passing off last night has nothing to do with infrastructure. First, What does education with child daycare have to do with infrastructure? I mean, nothing. Again, that has nothing to do with infrastructure. If you were going to sell me last night on building a bridge, I don't know, giving states money to pave roads. I mean, here in Ohio, for example, you look at different counties, you have cornfields growing in the middle of some roads. Now, I don't think that was in the engineer's plan, but there's just no budget. There's no money. You would think that would be in an infrastructure plan bill, but nope. Building schools. Now, we've got a lot of schools already. Hell, I mean, our kids aren't even in school now, let alone you want to build more schools? I mean, we can't even get the teachers to go back. The teachers' unions refuse to. Hell, look at California, folks. I mean, they still can't get the kids back to school. They're locked down tight out there, and they still can't get the kids back to school. I mean, and you want to build more schools. Yeah, good luck with that. Everything's done online, or the kids just don't go to school. He briefly talked about, and this was mentioned, I think, for about 2 minutes and 30 seconds is what I counted into this, the crisis at our southern border. I don't know about anybody else. I've seen the videos. I've seen, the media reports, all the stations. I've heard it on the radio. You hear the Border Patrol, the people that are actually working with immigrants, security that's there. It's a big problem down there. They can't control it. You would think you might want to pour a little bit of time into the southern border and address that, hey, we're going to get this under control. Here's a plan for what I have that's going to be to get this under control. Nope. You know what he started off with? I inherited a lot of problems. And he just went on from there with that. For starters, you didn't inherit a bunch of problems at the southern border. Donald Trump did what? He did two things. He tackled the border crisis with building a wall, which you've abruptly stopped. Now it's still slowly being built, but you've halted about 80% of that progress. So, yes, walls do work, because if walls didn't work, well, people that are wealthy or people that are in Congress who have their nice big mansions and they've got walls built around them, well, they keep people out, so they must work, right? You've heard this before. I'm not selling anybody nothing that they haven't heard already. So yeah, that was a great thing that our former president had going, and you stopped it. Then you put on there that he said for 30 years, Congress has failed to act on border control and immigration reform. Really? 30 years, no one's done anything with immigration reform. Didn't the last president, which is kind of like watching a Harry Potter movie with the Biden administration, I just call Trump he who shall not be named. Like Voldemort. Not allowed to say it. Didn't he have great stipulations that he put on with sending people back, getting rid of catch and release, curbing the whole thing with illegal immigrants coming in, and it was at an all-time low. And then what happened? Well, Joe, you got in there and you said, yeah, come on in. Come on in. Just come to this country. We'll let you in. If you're children, yeah, you get a free pass. Come on in. Come on in. Well, you put your foot in your mouth. Because now everybody, you see the shirts down there, folks. I see them every day when they do cover it. You got illegals with shirts on it says, Biden said we could come in. Do you think they just made that up? No. The man said it. He said it. So what do you think they're going to do? They're going to flock to the border. It's going to be a constant problem. but we only got that address for about 2 minutes and 30 seconds last night. Let's just round it up and give it a 3-minute mark. And that's it. That's all we got. And that it's Trump's fault because he inherited a lot of problems. Didn't address the overflow of migrants in facilities that are sleeping on top of each other. Didn't address the, the criminal activity with people, sex trafficking and human trafficking across the border that is every day. It's become a lucrative market. Nope. 2 minutes and 30 seconds is what we got. And it's Trump's fault. So the speech was about 65 minutes long. He was everywhere in this speech. So I'm kind of going to follow the Joe Biden blueprint here. I'm going to go all over the place. The next thing we got was, well, this country is racist. That we are, what did he quote saying here? Oh, the most racist white supremacy country that there is. And that, I quote, is the most dangerous domestic threat to the American people and to this country. Well, I'm going to break down that statement there. That was a mouthful. I don't know about anybody else. Yes. Is there racists in the United States? Sure. Are there racists around the world? Yep. Let's look at the whole population of the United States as a whole. Are you telling me that everybody's racist? Or are we going to go back to the whole group thing? That's an awful lot of people to group into that statement. Now, let's say there's maybe 30 to 100,000 people that, like white supremacists. Sure, I'm sure there are a number out there. Do I think it's the whole United States? No. Most people are common, ordinary, American-loving individuals and families. Most people, practice the values of, treat others how they want to be treated. I really don't think that, this is the most dangerous threat is domestic white supremacy to the United States. That is the number one thing that is the biggest issue and concern for the United States is that. Come on. I'm going to quote you, Joe. Come on, man. That's far, far-fetched. I mean, you want to talk about problems here in the United States that far outweigh that one? I got a good one for you. And it's what you're sending this country into. You ready? It's called, we're about to devalue the dollar to the point where it's going to be worth nothing. You're going to see a dollar on the ground and someone's going to lift it up to see if there's something more valuable underneath that dollar bill. Because it's going to be worth nothing. You want to talk about a big issue? Let's talk about inflation. Let's talk about what is happening. Today, if you go back through, and I want anybody listening to this, I don't care if you think I'm right, crazy, whatever. Go and do the research yourself. It's on there. You can find it. You can find it anywhere. Look up what our national debt is and where it's at. Just in a year's time, in just 1 year since the pandemic has started, we have doubled the national debt. If they pass this infrastructure bill and all the agendas that the Biden administration is wanting to pass and laid out last night, their radical agenda, or the progressive agenda as he calls it, they're going to be adding another $19 trillion since last year that engulfs what we already have now. $19 trillion. There's no going. We're printing money worth nothing. There isn't enough gold on this planet to cover that bill. Or even valuable silver at that matter. And you know what's going to happen. I mean, you want to talk about a dangerous threat to this country. It's inflation. I got online today and was looking this up here this afternoon. And you want to talk about inflation. You're already starting to see it. I don't know how many people is paying attention to this. I know I am here in Ohio. You go into a store like Lowe's or Menards. Plywood. Plywood has almost tripled in cost. Tripled. You could go get a sheet for, I don't know, around $20 or so. It's double that now. In some stores, it's triple that. I had a guy here the other day, it was $48. It's up to $98 now. That's crazy. I read a USA Today post here the other day. Plastics. They have a shortage of it. Well, why is that? Well, because, again, this administration is just pumping money into the economy, which, yes, jumpstarts the economy. But what's it also do? Well, if you're paying people to sit at home, folks, it's pretty much simple economics here. If they're not going to work, what are you doing? If you're paying people to stay at home and they're making more money to stay at home, you're not going to have a workforce. If you don't have a workforce, what happens? There's nobody to work all these jobs. So you look at the jobs report that came out, and they're touting, yeah, there's epic job growths. We added 2.7 million jobs. That's right, you did. Now, do another report. How many of those are actually jobs that are filled right now? I bet you're going to get a staggering amount that's not filled. Why? Because nobody's working. If you can't make the goods, what happens? We get inflation because there's no parts. They can't sell them then. So they sell out of the goods that they have. So then what happens? Well, the manufacturers and places start hurting because they can't make the goods for the consumer. And then after that, they just start marking up the cost of their products that they do have. So everything's skyrocketing. They also do that when there's too much money into the system, like we flooded right now with COVID. And what happens? Well, inflation's going to go up because the dollar isn't worth anything. So a dollar might be worth 50 cents, half of what it is. This is simple economics. So when you sit there, Mr. President, and you say, yeah, the domestic threat is white supremacy in this country and racism. No. There's far worse things that's going on right now. And I just mentioned one that you're causing. And you want to pump more money into a system that's already going to fail. So stop pumping money into a system. We're going to have, we have a sugar, what I call the sugar high right now. You got jobs, so many that people can't fill them. But again, when you're pumping money into a system for people to stay home and you're touting, we support unemployment. We support those people sitting at home. They're not going to go get a job. That was the other issue last night. He did not choose the American worker. He chose big government, folks. He said it. He came right out and said it last night. That anybody with a government job, you're safe. Heck, I mean, they just pushed up the minimum wage for contractors, for federal contractors. To $15 an hour now. You work for the government, you're safe. They're just going to keep building this out and building this out. This is what our forefathers were afraid of: big government. You can't do that. The bigger you're going to make government, it just gets out of control. This is why I touted, Donald Trump, President Donald Trump, and he didn't even get any. He didn't even get any He didn't even get any. They didn't even mention him last night. They didn't, look at him for Project Warp Speed, the layout of the vaccine, the speed in which that president went through and got this vaccine out for the American people. That's one of the biggest achievements in American history, folks, and they're not going to talk about it. The only thing that Joe Biden did last night was to take credit when he should have gave credit to our former president. It was, we hit this benchmark for this many people with shots. You didn't mention the former president that made that possible, right? Because you wouldn't have had anything if it wasn't for our former president with Operation Warp Speed. What did he do? He did the exact opposite of what this president is doing right now. President Donald Trump went through and did what? He removed big government. He pushed it out of the way. That's how Project Warp Speed came into play. He pushed the pharmaceutical companies and the government mandates that said you have to take so much time for test trials and experiments, and they pushed that out of the way. They cut the time down in half. So what would have taken 2 years for something to be created, or 4 to 6 years, 8 to 9 months. And he delivered. For everybody that's a naysayer out there and hated our former president, he delivered, did he not? Everybody that said, oh, he's lying, he just keeps saying it's coming, it's here. They're saying over half the population now is vaccinated. Yeah. Thank you, former President Trump. So, like I said, this is just some of the things last night that was talked about. And there was a lot. At times, I don't know if anybody else caught this, Joe went into his mumble rants where he had to stop himself. And there was once or twice where he even apologized because I don't think he knew what he was saying, or it just didn't click. But it was noticeable. So I got on today, was looking at some fact checks. They used to fact check Donald Trump all the time. Anything that he would say was fact checked. And I did find some things here with Joe Biden, covering the whole entire speech. This one I found on USA Today. I was actually kind of amazed that they actually had a fact check on there, seeing how they typically don't do that with this administration. Some key points that I got from their fact check site here was Biden said that he inherited the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. As they put on here, but when he took office, the economy had already recovered some from a low point earlier in the pandemic. Joe Biden repeated, but was also debunked here, that he had traveled 17,000 miles to visit the Chinese president. Well, that's not true. Biden referred to the American Jobs Plan, creating millions of jobs and generating trillions of dollars in economic growth. Fact of the matter is, though, the jobs estimate is accurate, but the economic projections are mixed. And they are. If you look at the, let me see here. Let me pull this up. Give me 1 second here. If you look at the Moody's projection, it was a survey that was done. It got mixed. It got mixed, kind of a mixed review with the whole economic projection and where it's at and what it was prior to the other administration. The Trump administration had rebuilt this country when Joe Biden took office. So we were already up on the uptick. Now we're getting the opposite. We pushed government out of the way. Now we're bringing big government back in. There was just some really, really big, stark comparisons between both of these administrations. And last night, what I got was, I'm telling you now, I'm worried about the future of where we're going with this country under this administration. And this is not me touting just my opinion. This is just things that I'm seeing. We have a president that is making it very clear he does not support the armed forces. We know that because he's trying to restructure it right now. Anybody that disagree with their agenda, what are they doing? What was the statement that was put out here last month when they put the fence in Washington, D.C., and they were talking about taking down the fence, and, you know, we had the troops there in Washington, D.C., what did they say? They were having to go through and check soldiers' IDs and their political and social postings, and if they were biased, and if it didn't fit the agenda, they were pulling them. Folks, they're rebuilding the military from the ground up, and they're restructuring it not in a good way. They're going to make it a communist, socialist military, where if you don't agree with the agenda that they propose, you're gone, or we're coming to get you. As a veteran for 8 years, and I'm proud to say that, I know how the military works. I was in there for 8 years in the military for the Army. I did a deployment for a year in Iraq in 2010. I get the inner workings of our military forces. And I'm telling you, when you start doing segregation in the military and you start pulling people because of rather their religious, personal belief, opinion, rather it be political or non-political, or if they have a different view of capitalism than you, and you start pulling those individuals out and targeting them as, well, you might as well just come out and say it, terrorists, domestic terrorists, doesn't that scream that they're restructuring the military? Look at the police right now. What do you keep hearing everywhere? The police are bad. Don't support the thin blue line. They're racists. See, they don't go through his administration. They don't go through and say, you know, we got a couple bad eggs. Let's get rid of those bad eggs. No. What do we get? We get what we got last night. The country is overwhelmingly racist. We need police reform that actually works. We need it now. That's what they touted all night. We need change now. The world's not waiting for us. We got to do this now. You're either on board or you're off, but we got to do this now. China's our enemy. We got to do this now. They're not waiting. They're going to surpass us. The rest of the world is going to surpass us in technologies and in economic, and we got to do it now. The hell with the American people. This administration knows what it's doing. We got to do it now, whether you agree with it or not. And you're seeing it. You're seeing it. They're making this. What's going to happen is the police are going to be gone. And you're going to have, same thing with the military. You're going to have a radical regime, one policy that's going to control everything. If that's not Orwellian, I don't know what is. And that's what's going to end up happening. And you're getting a glimpse of that last night. And I know a lot of people are probably will watch this are going to say, I don't know, man. I think you're going a little bit too far. No. If you read the context of what he presented last night and paid attention, it was the framework for what's coming. And it isn't anything good. Because they will, folks. They will. The government, if you don't agree with them under this administration, they will come for you. Me, someone like me talking about this to the public, you don't think that they're not going to put a target on someone like me? They do it every day. Look at what they're wanting to do with the with your taxes, with the tax department. They proposed an $80 billion federal increase for the IRS. And what did Joe say? Well, Joe's comment was, well, that's to help go after people that haven't been paying their fair share. These companies that should be paying their fair share. He said it last night. Just pay your fair share. That's all we're asking is you people to pay your fair share. Well, I don't know about anybody else, but I think I pay my fair share. I think most Americans pay their fair share of taxes. Small businesses. And as much as people might say, well, those Mr. Nash, those big corporations, they don't pay. They get out all these loopholes. No. They pay their taxes. I think people don't understand. They pay for a lot of things. These companies that you work for, they pay out the yin-yang. And that's not me defending these huge companies. They do make an extreme amount of profit, but you work for them. Who do you think pays your paycheck, your health care? They do. But nobody looks at this as a whole on the whole economic front of this. It's we got to get those big companies. And he's wanting to market up to what? From about a 23, 26% where it's at now, all the way up to 48% on taxes for big corporations. Well, folks, you know what's going to happen with that. We're going to have the same thing that they were doing 10 years ago under the Obama administration. And even before that. You tax these companies, they just leave. They just leave and go overseas where it's cheaper. And then your job growth, guess what happens to it? They tanks. There's no jobs here. And then you get record high unemployment again. I mean, there was a lot of things that was said last night. I mean, there's so much, I don't even think I can cover all of it. And it was all over the place. It's like this podcast. I'm all over the place tonight because that speech was all over the place last night. It didn't make any sense. You want growth, but yet you're killing jobs that were actually growing jobs. That statement last night about, we got to create green jobs. We got to create infrastructure. Okay. Well, did you feel that way when you killed all those jobs for the Keystone Pipeline? How many people and families did you put out for that one, Joe? Those were good paying jobs. Those weren't going anywhere. That's a resource that's needed here in the United States. We were fuel independent. Those people were set. They had good jobs. You killed it. You killed it in a week's time. And then you turn around and say, well, they could go get other jobs, like working on solar panels. Really? Working on solar panels. One, that's a complete different job category than what those people were doing. And two, again, I'm going right back to the whole thing with inflation, which is the big problem that's coming, folks. Because like I said, What happens with inflation? We don't have the merchandise to sell. We don't have the things that we need to be made to sell. And that's what's happening right now. So when you say, well, yeah, they can just, they can go do green new jobs. Okay, well, where are we going to get the materials for that? You know, Ford and Chevy just came out here last month. They're back to making vehicles again, folks, with no computer parts in them because they can't get the chips for them. I wonder why that is. Well, it's easy. It's inflation. You throw so much money into there for people to stay home, you got no workers. They're not going to be making the goods. It's not going to get imported. So what's going to happen? They can't make it. And the prices just get jacked up. So yeah, it was all over the place last night. Going forward, I really, really hope that for the individuals that did watch this last night, I really hope that this was a wake-up call for people. And this whole bipartisan, it's not bipartisan. This is basically the Biden administration. It is their progressive agenda. This is them signaling the death roll for democracy. And people need to wake up if they haven't already. I really do. I really hope people are waking up, just as I'm watching these things as well, and actually seeing it for what it is. I really, really hope so. It's like when we talk about, you know, the things going on in the educational system with critical race theory. Please pay attention to what's going on. You don't have to watch the news. You don't have to listen to the radio. You can look your own information up. It's not hard. I do it every day. I do it right before these podcasts to give you information. There's a lot of serious things that's getting ready to come. And I keep hearing a lot of people say, I want to address this before the night's over. Well, just start buying silver and gold. Folks, that's great if you can get your hands on it. For the small individuals like myself who only make so much money and have so much income, you're already struggling. It's kind of hard to find extra money to go out and buy gold and silver if you can get your hands on it. And don't buy paper gold. It's a joke. It's a ripoff. If it's not tangible metal, it's not going to be worth anything if you can get a hold of it. So I guess from what I'm getting at here to end this podcast, people need to start paying attention. If you have a savings account or you've got money put aside somewhere for a rainy day, I would start looking at other options because the dollar is going to tank. You know, my grandfather, I'll leave on this note tonight. My grandfather, God rest his soul here, he's been gone for 2 years, going on 3. He would always say to us and my own mother, because he lived through the Great Depression, he said that it would never get back to that point again because, well, the government can just keep printing money. Unfortunately, he's right in one aspect. The government can keep printing money. But eventually, the government's not going to be able to buy back its debt. And when other countries like China stop buying our debt, you know what's going to happen. This country is going to fold. And it's going to be a dog-eat-dog world. So I guess I'm just telling people, please start paying attention. This is not even about selling your children or your grandchildren or your great-grandchildren down the road. It's past that point. When we just added $19 trillion, we're past that point. To the $26 trillion we already had, we're past that point. Start getting prepared for things. Start making wise decisions when it comes to the polls and going out there and voting for individuals for office, for your districts or your states, your counties. Go off the policy, not the individual. Because that's the only thing that's going to somewhat, maybe, hopefully, I hope to God and I pray every day, get this country back on track, is common sense. This country's done it many times over the century. And it can do it again. We just, unfortunately, I say this, we got to pull our heads out of our asses and do what's right. Because it's going to come to a point where you rather do what's right or what's easy. And that's what they're selling from last night, is what's easy. And it's not right. So I ended tonight, like I said, like I do every night when I end these podcasts. I am Charles Nash, here with Political Theater. I want people to leave what they think. Leave your comments, reviews. It doesn't even have to be about this. I mean, you can go into anything. I went through a whole lot of topics tonight. But I want to hear your feedback. We're here on YouTube. We're on Rumble, Facebook. Again, just look up Political Theater with Charles Nash, and you'll find all of our videos. I give detailed information. And again, please leave us your opinions. I will say this right now for this video as well. If you're someone who would like to come sit down here at my residence with me, chat, have a video, share something. If you want to get something that's community-wise on the internet and podcast it and broadcast it to the public, I would love to hear from you. Here in a couple weeks, we got some things that it's in the works that I'll be bringing. So again, I would love to hear from anybody who wishes to leave or leave a message or wants to talk to me. So again, I'm Charles Nash with Political Theater, and I hope everyone has a good night.